So I have seen this sentiment echoed quite a bit for Kaiju No. 8, saying that it is too simple, it's too boring, there's not enough there for it to be successful, or it will never be successful, popular because of it. I've seen a lot of people say that it would be cancelled very quickly because it doesn't bring anything new to the table, that it doesn't reinvent the wheel for the manga industry. I've always been curious in this perspective, because personally I've enjoyed Kaiju No. 8, but admittedly I never expected something else from it. I never escalated its own worth prior to its release or even during the early stages of reading it. I've always kind of kept a neutral, what I believe, understanding for the story, that this is what it is, not what it potentially could be or what it's going to be, but what I'm getting is basically what it is. That sounds kind of convoluted to put it like that, but when there's this level of expectation that naturally falls over, I believe, within the manga industry, something as simple, quote unquote, as Kaiju No. 8 realistically doesn't work. At least for a lot of people, it realistically doesn't work because it doesn't seem like enough. It doesn't seem like there's enough material or enough uniqueness within the story or its design or its concept or its characters to carry it forward. But Kaiju No. 8 has definitely proven that wrong. It has broken through that mold and it has become one of the most successful newer series within the recent years. It went on to break a couple of records, it's become one of the highest or fastest selling within different countries, and it has truly captured the world by storm. Is there validity or truth behind these simplistic claims? Is there truth or validity behind it never being popular or successful? That's what we are going to try and understand today. Before I start, however, I want to turn this into a brand new series. I don't really have a series on the channel, but I have a somewhat of a title for it. UUO, Understanding Unpopular Opinions, or quote unquote bad opinions. I've only ever done this with the recent Endtime video, and I had a whole lot of fun doing it. To put it simply, it's basically going in with an opinion that may not be the most positive and trying to understand it. By trying to understand it, dissecting it is within order and figuring it out and truly trying to get a better grasp on where this perspective may actually come from. So Endtime would be the first video that I've done for this, talking about it being too corny and dissecting that perspective. And now obviously Kaiju No. 8 with it being too simple or it will never be successful because of it, that perspective. Let me know if there's any quote unquote unpopular or bad opinions that you would like for me to try and dissect and at least understand. It could be for any story, concept, characters, etc, etc. There is a litany out there and I'm very curious to see why people think that certain type of way for that story or for that character or for that moment within there. If you have any that comes to mind, let me know down below. But with that, let's begin.
You take some chocolate and some lobster and some eggs and some pie and then you mix it in your body.
To give this a bit of context to make it a little bit easier, Kaiju No. 8 is a somewhat brand new series. It has around 50 to 60 odd chapters and it has been extremely well received. Published within Jump Plus, meaning that it is only a digital manga. It is not released physically within a week-to-week magazine similar to Weekly Shonen Jump, and it sells its volumes at an exponentially fast rate. This series came at a very odd time for the manga industry because I do believe there is some sort of valid claims to the manga itself, but just from a different perspective. So when people say that it isn't the most revolutionary thing, it isn't the most unique thing, I think there is some sort of truth behind it, but not within a disrespectful way. I don't think manga or stories in general have to be the most revolutionary thing. You can just tell a really good, tried and true storytelling experience. Something that has been done before from a different angle, from a different perspective, with a different theme or atmosphere or point of view, but it inhibits the exact same things that people have read maybe a million times before. But because there's some not revolutionary but refreshing outlook on it, it is enjoyable. It can be a solid or enjoyable piece of literature to indulge within. This is how I view Kaiju No. 8, and I also think the time it was released gives it a very healthy backbone. There was only one story prior within Jump Plus that was kind of taking the world by storm as well. It was really showing everyone what it was capable of, and that was Spy X Family. And people had a similar approach to Spy X Family, that it wouldn't be successful, that it would be cancelled, that it wouldn't get far because of the type of story that it was. Yet within the very dominated Weekly Shonen Jump, Battle Shonen, action manga, Spy X Family found a home very quickly. People wanted this. this. They wanted something that had a pinch of severity, but so much beautiful and effortless comedy between a very dynamic cast of characters. The reception, the response, the record-breaking result that it has is proof of that. And now it has become, just recently of last year, one of the top 10 most selling mangas of that year. And this is a pretty massive accomplishment for a story that only has 50 to 60 odd chapters, that doesn't have an anime, and that also publishes one chapter every 2 weeks. It's not within the main spotlight, yet it is selling along all the others that are within the main spotlight. That's very impressive. Kaiju No. 8 is within a similar position. It released a little bit after Spy X Family, and I believe a lot of people went over to it to check it out, which definitely helped its reception. It boosted it up quite exponentially, and they found an appeal within it that felt like Weekly Shonen Jump, but wasn't the same formula. It wasn't the same approach that you would normally expect. Even though you could read Kaiju No. 8 and say that it would perfectly slot into Weekly Shonen Jump's formula, I think it's a little bit too quick. There definitely is a methodical approach to Kaiju No. 8, but it never gives you room to breathe, and that is one of the biggest appeals that the story actually has. It's surprising because the term simplistic that people have for it is anything but that for Kaiju No. 8, because its story does not inhibit a simplistic approach. If anything, it's one of the most convoluted approaches and definitely one of the most difficult that you could try to achieve. The story is paced exponentially. This is a body of work that has been quite literally written out from start to finish, most likely, before it was even drawn or visualized artistically. The reason this is most likely a thing is because the arcs bleed and overlap into each other effortlessly. This is 50 to 60 odd chapters with anywhere between 3 to 5 arcs combined that feel like one mammoth arc. And that is how effortlessly they bleed into each other. This is not an easy thing to do, because when you're dealing with arcs, when you're dealing with storytelling, having this start, middle, and end point while drastically increasing your climatic tension is very methodical, should be very thought out. It needs to have this process of elimination, and Kaiju No. 8 definitely has this, but not in the same way. It doesn't have this step by step approach that you will see basically every other story do. And I feel like this is because it was only releasing 3 chapters a month, or it would take extended breaks here and there, so the author maybe felt inclined to keep things at a very rapid pace. Not too fast where you gloss over everything, but not too slow. It's almost like cutting out the building blocks, or a good portion of those building blocks, and jumping straight into the stuff that's important. And for me, that's one of the most impressive things that Kaiju No. 8 does. It doesn't really have any downtime. Every point of information that it gives you is important. A character expressing how they feel, a conversation, a piece of action, a death potentially. Everything feels like it has purpose. And to keep you from burning out too quickly, all of this importance is balanced or leveled to match a climatic rising tension. So simplistic conversations can be important, but they're at the lower end of the scale. And then your high octane massive fights or emotional impactful moments are obviously the most tension filled. This is how I personally view Kaiju No. 8, and this may make it sound more impressive than it actually is, considering this is more of the architecture or the framework behind Kaiju No. 8, but this is a pretty straightforward thing. There is a thought process that goes into it. There is a clear, coherent understanding of what the author wants to write and how they want to blend arcs together, which in itself is very impressive. But I think even with what the story gives you, it's not simplistic. I think it has this overall charm and appeal that just feels enjoyable to read. It's something that you don't have to take super serious while falling into a category of fun, falling into a category of characters that don't take themselves too seriously, but doesn't feel corny or overwhelming or too flashy, to put simply. It's also nice to have a main character that is a little bit older, a little bit more mature, that has a different thought approach to situations or scenarios. He's within his early 30s and his life is changing rather drastically. If I were to guess where the opinion actually comes from, I think it might just be the concept itself. The fact that the main character comes in contact with some sort of miniature kaiju, he accidentally absorbs it, suddenly he can turn into a humanoid kaiju, and then he would go on to fight other kaiju. So it's basically Godzilla, but there is a human that is Godzilla, or some variation of it. If you don't like kaijus, or if you don't like people fighting hideous beings or creatures, I could understand why you wouldn't like this, because this is what the story truly is. It is about a grown man that is being put within a position and used as some sort of weapon to fight other kaiju alongside his military friends. That is kind of a glorified synopsis of what the story actually is. So if you are within that perspective of not enjoying any of those things, or maybe you find that too simple or not enough, I feel like I can definitely understand that. Obviously it's not going to be up everyone's alley, but to say that it wouldn't get far, or that it wouldn't be successful, or that it would be cancelled is definitely an odd take, and probably more of an extreme. I understand there is a cancel culture within Weekly Shonen Jump series, that things get axed very quickly. Kaiju No. 8 isn't within Weekly Shonen Jump, it's within Jump Plus, but I can understand why it still applies elsewhere. I can correlate the simplicity of Kaiju No. 8 with it potentially being cancelled, because it doesn't do anything revolutionary or new or this or that, and it just wouldn't keep up with all the other competition. But that is a difficult thing to really gauge at the beginning of a story's lifespan. Kaiju No. 8 was successful right from the get-go. It was popular right from the get-go. It was trending, it was blowing up within its first week, within its first month, and within the first 3 it was breaking records. I think it was a story that appeared at the right time, that people wanted something refreshing but also nostalgic, something new but not necessarily unique. They didn't want some deep, dark exploration of humanity or mental health or politics even. Maybe all they wanted was a solid story with solid characters, with a solid concept that knew what it was trying to tell. That is Kaiju No. 8, and it has everything at its disposal to play upon that and build it in a way that is so much more intuitive than you would ever actually think. Because on the surface you may see it as being simple, but underneath, if you actually get to read the story or catch up to it, there is a lot of political drama and pull that is quite scary. The treatment of the main character, the treatment of kaijus, the political power between the two and how it fractures the world a little by little, the evolution of kaijus and humanity itself. There is a massive story underneath, a very heartfelt one, a very important one, and if you want to indulge within it, it is anything but simple. But you don't have to. You can read the story just for its action. You can read the story just for its characters. I think that comes entirely back down to your own personal perspective on what you want, what you're looking for at the time, and how you're feeling. So do I think Kaiju No. 8 is simple? Yes. Do I think it's simple in a bad way? Definitely not. It may not be as intuitive or as expansive as other stories, but I'm not trying to compare. There's a lot of enjoyment to get from it, and if you want a deeper, darker, more thought-provoking story, there is stuff underneath it for you if you want to go past that simplicity. Obviously, the other things, it being cancelled, not successful, or unpopular, is not a thing either. It's one of the most popular series to come out in recent years, and it is extremely successful. You will see a lot more of Kaiju No. 8 within the following year or two. I would expect an anime within the near future as well, which would blow it up even further if the reception for it was right. You don't have to like Kaiju No. 8, you may still hate it by the end of this video. This may not change your perspective of anything, but I do feel like I understand the perspective for where people are coming from a little bit better. Kaiju No. 8 definitely isn't for everyone, but if you want it to be, it can be a very enjoyable read, and something that might actually catch you by surprise. Endtime. So with that, welcome to the end of the video. If you have made it this far, I greatly appreciate you. Thank you. But I would love to know how you feel about Kaiju No. 8. Is it something that you appreciate, you enjoy, maybe you find it simplistic as well, or maybe that's all you ever wanted it to be? A nice, simple story that isn't overly exaggerated or over the top too much, but something that you can just enjoy within maybe some of the bigger stuff. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. But with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.